With this summer's big gaming announcements more or less in the books, I think it's time to make a list of the top 10 hopefully awesome games coming out during the remainder of 2023. This is my third year in a row doing one of these rest of the year videos, and wow, this was a hard list to comprise. 2023 has definitely been a strong year so far and looks to continue its momentum well into the holidays. With all the titles still to come, I have struggled to put these games in a cohesive order, but tried my best while taking into consideration general hype levels, my hype levels, a couple of my recent polls, while also trying to get a good mix of variety. All this is to say, don't overthink my list or my placement. A few games that just barely missed out on the top 10, but I'm sure some of you are super excited for, include Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, that's a mouthful, Payday 3, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, Forza Motorsport, Persona 5 Tactica, Pikmin 4, and plenty of others. To start this list off, we have new Super Sonic Bros. Sonic Mario, Sonic Superstars. This title seems to be Sonic's version of New Super Mario Bros., where the creators are taking the classic 2D formula while adding in some modern flares. Personally, for me, I've always been more of a 2D Sonic fan versus the more hit or miss nature of the 3D outings. This game looks to capture that charming mix of simple 2D platforming at speed. Like any good Sonic game, co-op is here, but worth mentioning it is only in a traditional couch co-op form. These modern mixes on a classic formula are great because old players flock to them due to nostalgia, while they're still approachable and aesthetically pleasing enough to catch the eye of new players alike. I always like to see teams challenge themselves with more ambitious titles like last year's Sonic Frontiers, but can't deny a good throwback is also nice every once in a while as well. As of recording this, there is no official word on a release date, but you can expect Sonic Superstars sometime later this year, probably sandwiched between two massive games. While not as beloved as FromSoft's other series, Armored Core definitely has its loyal fan base. To be honest, I've never played any of the games in the series, having only ever heard of them mentioned from time to time. FromSoft doesn't generally make games I enjoy, but I also can't deny their pedigree for putting out quality titles. The idea of mech customization immediately piqued my interest. To anyone else unfamiliar with the series, this is not a Souls game with mechs, but rather a mech game made by FromSoft, which has me curious due to the one game from the studio that I actually somewhat enjoyed, and that's Sekiro. Sekiro's combat felt a lot more fun to me from moment to moment. After playing but not beating it, I've become open-minded and interested in what an epic game with mechs made by a studio known for their combat design can play like. So hopefully they release a demo beforehand, otherwise I'll probably won't take the $60 gamble and just wait for it to pop up somewhere like PlayStation Plus. But if you are an Armored Core fan, you'll want to mark August 25th on your calendar. Super Mario RPG is a fan favorite for many players who enjoy both Mario games as well as RPGs. With that said, the game is about as old as I am, which means that, many Mario and RPG players have never had a chance to experience this title, including yours truly. I, or more accurately my older brother, never owned an SNES, or at least not one that I remember, and so Super Mario RPG wasn't introduced to me at my impressionable larva state. But I've always been curious about that particular game, so I am genuinely excited to give it a try within a more modern context. From what I understand, part of what makes Mario RPG so special is that Nintendo and Square made a simple but fundamentally sound RPG through and through, probably serving as many players' first dip into the RPG genre. With these type of remakes, I'm always interested to see what the developers are willing to change and what they are willing to leave as it was. Good news is, relative to most of the games on this list, we won't have to wait very long from the announcement to actually playing the game. November 17th will be here in no time. Another October game leaves spooky season rather packed. Actually fitting of the season, we have Alan Wake 2. With an over 13-year gap since the last title, it will be interesting to see how different and modern the sequel is while maintaining much of the same bones as the original. Like another game on this list, players will have several playable characters to work their way through the story with. Given the more psychological nature of these games, It'll be interesting to see how these two characters are implemented. The only disappointing thing I've noticed is the fact that the game is coming out on October 17th instead of taking advantage of Friday the 13th 4 days earlier. I don't know whose idea that was. It is what it is, I guess. To be honest, I'm not big into survival horror, and I feel like I'm missing a couple screws in my head that allows me to really enjoy that style of game. But I am also a little tempted by the unique and creepy premise with a layer of mystery shrouded around, at least for this particular story. Due to the other games being released around this time of year, I will unfortunately be skipping this title, but I am happy for all of you who are looking forward to it on October 17th. Super Mario Bros. Wonder looks to be Mario's grand re-entrance into the 2D platformer space. Wonder appears to clearly have much of the same DNA as the new Super Mario Bros. Series, but with some refreshing twists to that aging formula. Compared to other 2D Marios, Wonder seems to be even more wacky and weird, which is saying something for a plumber who has a track record of running around on dinosaurs, killing turtles, and consuming mushrooms. Wonder is still a bit of a wonder for me with the little amount of condensed gameplay we've seen, but it definitely looks fun solo and even more fun in co-op. It'll be interesting to see in what ways the course is going to change in relation to the player when the apparent weird mode is activated. Personally, I enjoyed the new Super Mario Bros. A lot when they first came out on the DS and Wii, while the later entries began to feel a bit stale, so I'm excited to see what a brand new 2D Mario platformer can play like. If you are looking forward to the iconic plumber's next outing, mark the date for October 20th. I feel like another big game is coming out that day. If you're an old school Assassin's Creed fan that doesn't love the recent massive open world RPG approach, then this latest entry, Mirage, may be the game for you. AC Mirage looks to be a back-to-basics Assassin's Creed game with its seemingly renewed focus on stealth. It looks like you'll actually be playing as an assassin this time versus just an overpowered warrior with a few stealth strike takedowns. Compared to other titles in the series, this one is supposed to be much shorter and condensed, which will hopefully address many players' biggest complaints with the series, and that's the bloated busy work. This more streamlined approach will hopefully help the game avoid overstaying its welcome, especially during this time when we have an overabundance of new quality games fighting for your attention. Funny enough, I've never actually rolled credits on an AC title, and so hopefully this game will be the one to break that trend for me, at least eventually, when I can make time for it. To be fair, I've only ever played a handful of the games throughout this massive franchise, but even the critically beloved Black Flag wasn't able to keep my attention. I don't hate the series, I just have been mostly indifferent, which is strange to me considering how much I adore Ghost of Tsushima, which has a very similar structure in a lot of ways. But again, hopefully I can squeeze in some time on October 12th to at least give Assassin's Creed Mirage a try. 2023, the year of remakes, sequels, survival horror, and fighting games. Fighting games don't get much bigger than Mortal Kombat. The latest installment, Mortal Kombat 1, is not the first game in the series, but it's definitely the one to keep your eye on. Okay, bad jokes aside, from what I understand, the 1 is meant to mark the restarting of the timeline as well as serving as more or less a soft reboot of some sort. A staple of the series, fatalities are back and even more over the top than ever. Maybe it's just me, but these fatalities are in a kind of weird place where they look so real due to the visual fidelity, but are also so over-the-top cartoony. It's just kind of a weird, interesting combination. Now, weird isn't a bad thing, but just different. Speaking of different, we have cameo fighters that join you mid-battle. This new cameo fighter system looks interesting. I'm curious to see it in action by the pros so I can poorly attempt to emulate them. Much like racing games, I have a very casual admiration for fighting games. I'm not good at these type of games and I won't do a review on them, but I still plan to have plenty of fun with Mortal Kombat 1 on October 8th. There seems to always be an unquenchable thirst for a Souls-like game, whether it's FromSoft or not, and with FromSoft focused on Armored Core 6 this year, the door has been left wide open for Lies of P. This game is just not for me. As I kind of touched on earlier, I struggled to click with the Souls-style combat for whatever reason. With that said though, I was happy to see this game put out a demo. Demos are a great tool to win over potential buyers who are on the fence who would maybe normally pass when not 100% sure on a title. $60-$70 is a lot of money to commit. From the little that I have played of the demo, gameplay wise, this definitely feels like a Souls-like with some unique touches. I think for many players this setting is the key selling point. Take a beloved character traditionally associated with Disney movies and dial the darkness up to an 11 and you have Lies of P. If you enjoy dark steampunk Victorian fantasy settings and need a game to scratch your itch for Souls combat, this seemingly is the game for you on September 19th. My predictions wishlist video for Marvel Spider-Man 2 is by far my most viewed video to date, with the YouTube algorithm seemingly categorizing me as a Spider-Man 2 channel. To be honest, I feel that video is easily one of my worst ones. I made it with zero expectations that anyone would watch it, with my primary goal being just trying to establish a semi-regular release cadence while practicing going through the motions of actually making and uploading a video. With all that said, I am super excited to get my hands on Marvel Spider-Man 2, and if there was any game to be associated with, it's definitely not a bad one. Taking a look at that prediction video, I feel I did kind of a horrible job articulating myself, but I actually think a lot of my ideas weren't off base. The symbiote seems to be at the center of much of the game's conflict, as well as Peter and Miles' relationship most likely being tested by these external and internal challenges. We still don't know a lot about how the story is structured and the order of importance for each villain, but what we do know is that this is going to be a polished and refined version of what we already loved about the first two titles, but with most likely a sizable amount of additional content. I feel one of the many things that makes Insomniac's Spider-Man special is its almost perfect middle ground of telling a familiar classic Spider-Man story with a refreshing remix approach that kind of helps keep the game from ever feeling too predictable or stale. If you liked either of the previous two Insomniac games, then I would be surprised if you don't also enjoy Marvel Spider-Man 2 later this year on October 20th. After Microsoft's recent showing of Starfield, it's safe to say at this point, it's the game with the most hype for the remainder of this year. Starfield looks to possibly be one of those few console generation defining titles. With all this ambition oozing out of it, it's hard to say how smooth all these systems and ideas will mix together when the game's in action, but with Todd Howard saying that this game was basically ready over a year ago, the last year being mostly polished, I'd be shocked if Microsoft allowed any version of this title to be released in a subpar state. So what I'm saying is I can't see this game being anything less than good, with personal preference being the main deciding factor if this title's for you. If you like other Todd Howard Bethesda games and space, then I'd be surprised if this release were to disappoint. This isn't to say the game is a guaranteed 10 out of 10 or anything like that, but it will be interesting to see where ambition is compromised for the sake of actual results. I'm extremely curious to see how deep these systems go, as well as how much replay value is here. Personally, I'm looking forward to customizing my ship and then working my way through a ton of different planets while picking up some faction type side quests along the way. Starfield is set to blast off on September 6th, so hopefully that is enough time for me to get to a good stopping point before Spider-Man 2 comes out. These are some great problems to have in 2023. How many of these games mentioned do you plan to play at some point but may need to hold off until possibly next year, whether it's time, money, or a combination of both? As mentioned, this list was supposed to be a mix of my audience and general public with some guidance of my own taste. Personally, my excitement levels are high for Starfield, Spider-Man 2, Mortal Kombat 1, Super Mario Wonder, Super Mario RPG, and Sonic Superstars. I'm interested to see Assassin's Creed Mirage and Armored Core 6 in action before I can commit to either of those two titles, while Lies of P and Alan Wake 2 are just not for me, but I'll try to feed off the excitement of others secondhand. Tell me your game plan to try and tackle the rest of this year, and out of all the titles mentioned, if you could only have one, which one are you picking up? As always, appreciate you for watching, and until next time, see ya.